World War II. Melanesia. American soldiers land on remote island and start sharing food, medicine and strange tools. I mean, things that local tribes had never seen before. And how did that stuff arrive? It fell from the sky, dropped from airplanes, on parachutes, straight from heaven. But when the war ended and the Americans left, the locals were left with nothing. No food, no medicine, no anything. So what did they do? They started rebuilding the scene. They made fake airplanes out of junk, leaves and scrap. Waved flags to guide the gods. I mean Americans. They copied absolutely everything they had seen the Americans do. Their logic was simple. If we want the sky gods to send gifts again, we need to do exactly what they did. Kind of like if you say Wingardium Leviosa, just right, the magic will work. But now here's my question. How is that way of thinking any different from the ancient Egyptians? Exactly. It's not. Building pyramids exactly where something landed from the sky sounds like a solid plan if you are a pharaoh who has no idea what just happened. In that logic, the aliens would be gods, just like American soldiers were gods to the Melanesians. But here's the twist. The islanders used leftover junk from the soldiers to recreate their rituals. And with pyramids, we've got nothing. It's clean. I mean, too clean. Why? The truth is, the pyramid didn't always look like it does today. Over the centuries, someone stripped it, block by block, piece by piece. But why? What was at the top? And who wanted it gone? Let's find out. There are people who claimed that the Great Pyramid wasn't a tomb, but an ancient power plant. It's not even a new idea. In 1859, British inventor Sir William Siemens climbed to the top of the pyramid. Once he got up there, he noticed something really strange. Raising his hand produced a buzzing sound and a tingling sensation in his fingers. And when he tried to drink wine straight from the bottle, I mean, maybe it's a victory symbol or something, right there at the top of the pyramid, a spark jumped and hit him on the lips. So Siemens wrapped the bottle in wet paper, creating what was basically a primitive kind of battery, or more like a capacitor. I mean, a Leyden jar, to be precise. But okay, then he touched his guide. The man was struck by the discharge like a lightning bolt. He ran away, screaming, convinced that the European had just tamed the spirits of the pyramid. And that story later became the driving force behind the theory claiming the pyramid was actually a giant power plant of the ancient world. Okay, that raises a, well, maybe not simple, but one question. Why would ancient Egyptians need electricity? Let me explain. Look, here's a hieroglyph from the Temple of Hathor in Dendera. What does it show? A light bulb. So maybe this theory, in theory, isn't as crazy as it sounds. Maybe they really needed electricity for something. And this is where things get interesting. The main promoter of the pyramid as power plant theory is this guy. His name is Christopher Dunn, an engineer and author of the book The Giza Power Plant. He claims the Great Pyramid was a precisely engineered device built to generate and transmit energy. Interesting, right? But what are his arguments? Simple. First, there was no mummy found inside the pyramid, no hieroglyphs, and the interior looks raw. mechanical, like its purpose was something entirely different. But, okay, let's be honest. Ancient people, they loved paintings. They decorated absolutely everything. And by the way, take a look at these cave paintings, supposedly showing visitors from the space. Come on, don't they look just a little bit too familiar? In fact, strange drawings of these so-called aliens have been found all over the world, not just in Egypt. And some researchers treat them as proof that highly advanced extraterrestrial civilizations may have influenced the building of the pyramids, or even human history as a whole. Have you ever heard about the theory about the Younger Dryas catastrophe? No? Okay, so listen up. Around 12,000 years ago, during the last ice age, humanity was on the brink of extinction. A massive flood wiped out absolutely everything. Only a handful of us survived, completely unprepared for the new world. Then help arrived. Or so the stories say. For example, in the Bible, Noah and his ark, in Babylon, Gilgamesh, in South America, Viracocha, in Egypt, Horus, and each of them brought the gift of civilization, agriculture, law, astronomy, and so on. Is that a coincidence? I don't know. But I do know this. Those aliens in drawings, they are probably just depictions of shamans from local tribes. And those drawings, they are usually found in places tied to religious rituals. And yeah, you're right. Who led those rituals? Exactly, shamans. So yeah, I get it. It's not the most exciting explanation. Sorry, but like, don't blame those people for not going to art school. They probably didn't know much about perspective or shading. Have you ever seen medieval drawings? Oh, it's total disaster. And even if they knew what they were doing, sometimes those weird figures could be part of the artistic style. Take the Scream, for example. We understand that it's about fear, a person terrified by the sound around them. That's why those pose looks the way it does. But 10,000 years from now, you think someone will interpret it the same way? I don't think so. Let's go back to the pyramid for a second. In his book, The Giza Power Plant, Christopher Dunn points out the materials it was built from. The outer casing, made of limestone, was in his view the perfect insulator, and the core granite, a conductor. But not just any granite. Granite contains quartz crystals, to be precise, which, when pressed or vibrated, produce what's called the piezoelectric effect. In short, they convert vibrations into electric charge. Why am I telling you about this? Because according to Dunn, there was a water system beneath the pyramid. Water from the Nile would reach the underground chamber and set the whole structure into microvibrations. And those microvibrations would stimulate the granite, and the granite would generate energy. But that's not all. There's another theory that a chemical reaction was happening inside the so-called Queen's chamber, and this reaction was producing hydrogen. Why hydrogen? Why is that important? Hydrogen was the key. It's the perfect medium for transmitting vibrations. Entire King's chamber was filled with hydrogen, and the granite blocks started to vibrate. The piezoelectric effect could be convert those microvibrations into, you're right, into electric charge. All thanks to the hydrogen. Okay, it's interesting, but how was the hydrogen created? Supposedly, hydrochloric acid and solution of zinc chloride were poured into the Queen's chamber. Then, the chemicals would mix inside the shafts, producing hydrogen gas, which then flowed through the grand gallery and into the King's chamber. And there it would fill the entire room and act as a medium, a conductor. Then the granite, once activated by vibration, would convert mechanical energy into electromagnetic waves, into microwaves, to be precise. And basically a giant microwave oven, a wireless transmitter. And those microwaves, they were supposed to shot out through the narrow shafts, like through an kind of antenna. Cool idea, right? But the real question is, why? A lot of supporters of this theory also point to a 2018 study, a simulation run by a Russian team from ITMO University. They found that for electromagnetic waves around 300 meters in length, the pyramid could act as an electromagnetic resonator. Okay, but what does it mean? Imagine the resonating body of a guitar, for example. But instead of sound, we are talking about electricity, radio waves, microwaves, bouncing off the walls, reinforcing each other, especially in the king's chamber. Interesting, right? But now look at the construction. 9 granite beams, each weighing around 50 tons, stacked like they were designed to resonate. Narrow shafts like waveguides. The whole thing starts to look a lot like something from a microwave oven or a transmission tower, maybe. Why did they go to that level of engineering if this was just supposed to be a tomb? I don't know. But here's something more interesting. To transmit energy, you need a transmitter, right? And that's where the tip of a pyramid comes in. Because that's all sounds great until you realize the tip of pyramid, it's gone. The top is completely flat, cut off, covered with concrete, almost like someone removed it on purpose. And here we got old stories about Pyramidion, the stone that was once caped the pyramid. And if that's true, then it wasn't just a pretty decoration. It was the antenna, the final piece, the point that completed the whole system, sending energy into the atmosphere, into the ionosphere, maybe even into space. And if someone removed it, maybe it wasn't about looting. Maybe it was about shutting the whole thing down, making sure this machine would never work again. Conspiracy theories often assume that ancient people thought the same way we do. That if they drew something, it had to be a precise, logical representation of reality. But that was a completely different era. To them, the world was full of symbols, spirits and gods. No Google, no telescopes, no microscopes, no ChatGPT. They saw reality in a totally different way. Take the ancient Greeks, for example. They were the first to try making sense of the cosmos through a reason, instead of just blaming it on the gods. There was this philosopher, Anaxagoras. He lived 2500 years ago, and he already figured out what eclipses really were. But at the same time, he believed the Earth was flat, that it floated on something he called strong air, and earthquakes in that model, just tremors in that invisible cushion. Yeah, strange, right? He was also one of the first to suggest that life could exist elsewhere in the universe. Why? Because he thought stars and planets were chunks of Earth, broken off long ago, and some started spinning so fast they caught fire and boom, now they are stars. And the sun? The sun was just a massive red-hot ball of metal, according to him, of course. And he wasn't the only one with ideas like that. In the Middle Ages, things got even wilder. Back then, people imagined the universe as a giant cosmic onion, layered, transparent, perfectly round spheres stacked on top of each other. 7 layers. Each planet had its own celestial shell, rotating in a perfect circle, because only circles were pure, were divine, and the sun and moon also counted as planets, alongside Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn, the only ones visible to the naked eye back then. And all these fixed stars in the medieval worldview were placed in the 8th sphere, arranged very precisely, all at equal distance from Earth. And above that began the divine realm. The true, the only one heaven. That's where God lived, along with angels and the souls of the righteous. Not in human form, to be precise, but as kind of spiritual beings, waiting for the apocalypse. What's more interesting, medieval scholars didn't invent all this out of thin air. They were building on ancient Greek and Roman knowledge. They read Archimedes, they read Eratosthenes, who, by the way, estimated the Earth's circumference just by measuring ordinary shadow. Respect, bro. But it wasn't just blind copying. They really studied these ideas, expanded them, tried to adapt them to their own time. Kind of like we do now. Only instead of God, we had aliens, simulations and multiverses. But alright, let's back to the Earth again. If you want to really understand people from the past, the easiest way is to look at their maps. It's not a shocker, but back then, not every corner of the planet was fully explored. Actually, even today, it's not. We've been to space more often than to the bottom of our own oceans. Seriously. And honestly, that's not a flex. That's terrifying. But for people in earlier times, anything beyond the borders of the known world was the land of darkness. A place full of monsters, strange creatures and mythical races. And I know it sounds like a fairy tale, but now swap beyond the borders of the known world for example, beyond the solar system, and honestly, we are the same. Even Herodotus in his main work Histories wrote about griffins fighting over gold with cyclopses, or headless people who supposedly had eyes and mouths on their chests, and they lived beyond the Danube, my regions to be precise. Herodotus didn't believe most of these stories himself, but he still wrote them down. He collected tales of supernatural beasts, strange races and magical lands that people from other cultures believed in. But why? Well, money, obviously, but also people love to explain stuff they don't fully understand. And the simpler the explanation, the better. You want examples? Okay, take something like will-o'-the-wisps. Those mysterious little flames people used to see above swamps. Today, we know it's just chemistry. Methane and phosphine gases released by decaying organic matter can ignite on their own, creating brief, bluish flickers of light. Back in the day, people thought they were the souls of dead, unbaptized children, or ghosts, one of the two. If someone saw one while walking through a swamp, they'd sometimes follow it. Why? Because they thought it was the light of their home. And to be fair, most of the time, people following those lights were a bit drunk. So yeah, they'd ended up walking straight into the swamp and dying. Amazing ending. No. Now, back to maps, especially those from the 15th and 16th centuries. You will find weird monsters on them, like krakens, mermaids, giant birds. Turns out the cartographers didn't add them for fun. I mean, they weren't joking. They did it to grab the attention of wealthy clients, people willing to pay for exotic artworks, fancy maps covered it in beasts, and if the sales pitch went well enough, they'd even found an expedition to go find those monsters. Interesting, but wait, were all maps like that? No. Sailors' maps were simple and practical, but the monster maps, they were made for rich Europeans who couldn't travel themselves, or were stupid rich and thought, okay, I will found this, just bring me back the Kraken. Okay, thanks. Amazing. So the money showed up, the crew set sail to hunt the Kraken, and then, most of the time, they disappeared. Forever. I didn't finish the part about the pyramid tip, sorry. Instead of a proper top, what we have now is a flat platform, like a concrete table on the roof. So, where did the tip of the Great Pyramid go? I have to be clear. This isn't something new, some new theory that something is missing. This is a fact that's been known for at least 200 years. Even the ancients, Pliny the Older and Diodorus Siculus, wrote that the top of the pyramid was already flat in their times. That's around 60, 70 BCE. They didn't see any Pyramidion. Not even a trace. It's okay, Simon, so maybe the tip just broke off. Maybe wind, maybe time, maybe someone stole it. No, let's go step by step, okay? If it was just erosion, then why did other smaller pyramids survive with their tips, but the biggest one not? Sounds interesting, right? And here it gets interesting. We actually know when exactly the top 5 layers of the Great Pyramid disappeared. Before 1798, the tip still had 6 solid, massive blocks, hard as rock. You couldn't even sit up there. And in 1799, it was already a perfectly flat platform, like someone ran a guillotine across the top. So no, not wind, not a meteor, not a Pharaoh's curse. I will talk about it later, okay? I mean, it was business. At that time, guides made money by taking people up the pyramid. Today, it's forbidden, I know, but back then it was totally normal. And if the top has a flat roof, you can host a picnic, for example. Set up chairs, take photos, attract rich tourists. And that's exactly what happened. From the diary of Edme Jomard, a French engineer from Napoleon's expedition, we know that in January 1799 the platform was already perfect. Smooth, spacious, ready for gatherings. So yeah, the tip of the pyramid isn't missing because it was a cosmic antenna transmitting energy to the stars. It was just a great place to have a dinner. And the best part? We still have no idea who did it. Alright, so we are explaining everything. Yeah, that's amazing. But what about Sir William Simmons? He climbed the Great Pyramid in 1859 and started zapping people with electricity, right? It is the final proof that the pyramid is a power plant, Simon! No, not really. This phenomenon is actually super easy to explain. What Simmons described was a classic case of static electricity. The same thing that happens when your clothes get statically charged and you touch something. It's zap! Or when you wrap a balloon on your hair and it sticks to the wall. Same thing. Why? Just look at the conditions Simmons had at the top of the pyramid. I mean, climate, extremely dry. Air, zero humidity. Materials, stone, sand, metal, glass. Add to that the climb, rubbing clothes against rough surfaces. In short, Simmons became a perfect charging station. He built up a static charge like a walking balloon, then took a drink for a bottle, which acted like a mini capacitor, and boom! Electric shock. And just to be clear, this isn't some modern guess. Hikers and climbers often report that at high altitudes they feel tingling in their hands, hear faint cracking sounds, and sometimes even see little sparks jumping from their hair. And same thing happens with radio antennas, metal towers, even people on airplanes. All you need is dry air and the right setup for charge buildup. And suddenly you are like Electro from Spider-Man, or even worse. It's okay, but what about this piezoelectric effect? Simon, you told about quartz, that you've got quartz, which is found in granite or other crystals, that when squeezed or vibrated starts generating electric charge, right? That's it, case closed. The pyramid is a great power plant. Well, not exactly. The piezoelectric effect is very well understood. It happens, for example, in lighters. You press a button, apply pressure to a crystal, it generates a charge and a spark lights the gas. It's simple. Sounds the granite in the pyramid could work like that, right? Technically speaking, yes. The granite used in the Great Pyramid does contain quartz. So in pure theory, if you pressed that granite hard and consistently enough, some electrical charge might be produced. But here's the catch. Just having quartz isn't enough for the piezoelectric effect to be noticeable or usable. The quartz crystals need to be oriented correctly. To put it simply, they need to be aligned in such a way that their electric charges add up rather than cancel each other out. What does that mean? I mean, each quartz crystal has a structure that acts like a tiny dipole. Imagine a microscopic battery with a plus and minus end. When you squeeze that crystal, a small electric charge appears. But the direction of the crystal, oh my god, the direction really matters. If you have millions of such crystals all aligned in the same direction, all their tiny voltages will add up, giving you one strong, usable charge. But if the crystals are randomly scattered in different directions, some voltages will point one way, others the opposite, and their charges will start cancelling each other out, and the effect becomes almost zero. And granite? Granite is a rock where the quartz crystals are randomly oriented. No consistent alignment. So the electric charges they produce cancel each other out. To get any meaningful piezoelectric power, the crystals would need to be carefully aligned, all in the same direction, so their voltage could add up, like in a quartz watch, for example. But that's not the case in the pyramid. So the granite used there can't generate any usable current. I mean, it's lame. For the piezoelectric effect to actually work in the granite of the pyramid on a big scale, on a scale big enough to generate usable power, you would need a seriously strong source of mechanical energy. Like an earthquake? No, it's too short. A groundwater? Too weak. So maybe hydrogen! Yeah, exactly. Hydrogen was supposedly generated inside the pyramid through a mechanical reaction. Some people mentioned that this reaction might have occurred by mixing hydrochloric acid with zinc chloride. But there's a huge problem with this reaction. What problem? To produce hydrogen using hydrochloric acid, you need a metal in its pure elemental form. For example, metallic zinc. This is the reaction. But pure metallic zinc, you are not gonna find that in ancient Egypt. And more broadly, this whole reaction theory, it's a stretch. The earliest records of hydrochloric acid, or technically hydrogen chloride gas, come from Arabic alchemists around the 9th to 11th century AD. So mass production of metallic zinc that didn't kick off until maybe 12th century in India. Where is Egypt, according to India? And the Great Pyramid of Giza? That thing was built around 2500 BCE. That's huge gap. They keep telling us the pyramid were tombs for pharaohs from Old Kingdom. And okay, but if that's true, why the hell are they so huge? Why go with something that massive for regular grave? Have you seen what a cemetery plot looks like today? Exactly. And also a pyramid? I know it's perfect shape for a spaceship. Why spaceship? Because it's aerodynamic. Maybe. But there's one and only one problem with it. And this problem is space is space, no air. So why would anyone need aerodynamics in a vacuum? Well, almost a vacuum. You've got like 5 protons per cubic meter. Yeah, that's the average density of the universe. The more you know. So in theory, you could fly a, I don't know, ship shaped like a pancake, a flip-flop, or a damn fridge. It wouldn't make a difference. Ship shape only matters when you are leaving the atmosphere. Well, maybe not just that. There's maybe radiation, mass distribution, stability, orientation. But okay, let's keep it simple. Atmosphere first. There's a second version of this alien pyramid theory, that the shape of the pyramid was perfect for collecting starlight. And yeah, we are testing something like that today. Solar sails. Massive sails that catch photons and turn them into thrust. And the pyramid, it's got flat sides, all angled. So in theory, it could catch light from different directions, right? But honestly, that's kinda weird. If you really want efficient solar energy collection, you don't build triangle walls. You build a solar cell, thin as paper, big as a stadium, spread out of tens of kilometers. And that thing catches every photon and pushes the ship forward. Simple, right? But even that's kind of retro. Now, seriously, newer ideas are way cooler. Laser propulsion. Not just catch whatever the sun gives you, just blast a sail with a giant laser from orbit and push the ship with light. The only problem is even laser power isn't enough by itself, because sunlight and lasers, they are fate the farther you go. Somewhere between Mars and Jupiter, it's already barely breathing. So yeah, maybe it's fine for Mars or Venus or whatever, but I wouldn't recommend testing that thing outside the solar system. If any of you ever get the chance through, please send me a selfie. Shimon, you are seriously overthinking this. You've seen all those pics online, right? That's once where the pyramid is glowing white, right? Come on, it had to be covered in limestone. And limestone is an insulator, right? So obviously it was a giant ancient power plant or a fleeting alien spaceship. But someone broke it. Totally. 100%. Case closed. Shimon, you are seriously overthinking this. Except, no, not really. Because not all limestone is a good insulator. The one they used on the Great Pyramid back in the day came from the Tura quarry, and it had a few issues. First of all, it was fine-grained and super porous, like a sponge. It could absorb up to 10% of its volume in water. And as we all know, moisture and static electricity, not besties. But okay, what about dry materials? Sure, they can't hold a charge, but once they are wet, that charge just slips away. The insulation is gone. But wait, there's more. The Tura limestone also had impurities, iron oxides and other minerals, which made it even worse at insulating anything. So yeah, the pyramid used to be bright, white and shiny, but not because it was part of some electrical circuit. It was meant to look divine, like a literal god structure, and it did. So why doesn't it look like that now? Because people came and looted the whole thing. Seriously, after a huge earthquake in 1303, the outer casing started falling off, and the people of Cairo did what anyone would have done. They tried to preserve the sacred site, right? Nope. They took the blocks and built palaces, city walls. To this day, you can find stones from the Great Pyramid in old downtown Cairo. And guess what? Still, zero magnetic electricity inside. But okay, Simon, you still don't get it. You have been bought. They paid you to say this stuff. Big Pharma got you, man. They don't want you telling us the truth. That the pyramid has healing power. It cured wounds. It cured cancer. It cured every disease on Earth. That's why I ordered my own pyramid made of plastic from China. I'm putting it on my windowsill so it could soak up the sun's energy and beam it back to me. No disease will ever touch me again. Honestly, I really hope you never get sick. Truly. But this pyramid thing, that's probably just the placebo effect. Still, there are people out there who actually believe in this stuff, I know. Why? Because clearly for them, there's no way those pyramids were built with such perfect astronomical alignment. It blows your mind, some said. The pyramid lines up almost perfectly with the cardinal direction. No way ancient Egyptians did that on their own. It's aliens! Aliens! 100% aliens, obviously. We need exorcism. Oh, and I've almost forgot. Golden ratios, pi, sacred geometry, all that jazz. That can't be a coincidence, right? Let's break it down. There's actually a whole field called Pyramidiology. It's all about finding secret patterns and mythical math in pyramid design. Numbers like pi, phi, divine ratios, golden sections, that kind of thing. And to be fair, Egyptians didn't just eyeball it. They used a unit called the royal cubit. Not just from elbow to fingertip or something, but a legit standardized measuring rod. Roughly 52.4 centimeter, depending on the time and region. And the base of the Great Pyramid is square, 440 royal cubits on each side. The height, 280 cubits. If you calculate the tangent of the slope, the height divided by half the base, you get 28/22. That's very close to 4 per p, which is also very close to the square root of phi. And phi, as you know, comes from the golden ratio, like in the Fibonacci sequence. You take consecutive numbers, divide them, and eventually you get closer and closer to phi. So it's the final proof! Aliens! Cosmic math, Shimon! Nope, it's just a mathematical coincidence. With some basic algebra and a bit of imagination, you can turn anything into a conspiracy geometry rabbit hole. Plus, most of these proofs are based on approximations. That's like me saying I'm almost as tall as Ronaldo, so I must be as good as him at football. Yeah, totally holds up. But let's not end the construction talk yet. The Great Pyramid was built using massive stone blocks. Some of them absolutely gigantic. And at first glance, it looks totally impossible to move or lift them without modern technology, right? Well, not exactly. First of all, the limestone blocks were transported by water. Seriously. Back when the pyramids were being built, the Nile had a branch that no longer exists today. But back then, it flowed right next to the Giza. So it's simple. Quarry, raft, Nile, boom! You are at the pyramid. Easy, right? And then the classic tricks. Compact the sand, wet the road, grease the blocks, all of it just to reduce friction as much as possible. And surprisingly, it worked. Researchers from the University of Amsterdam ran an experiment. They built an accurate replica of an ancient Egyptian sled, loaded it up and pulled it over different surfaces. And guess what? If you lightly moisten the sand, the force needed to pull it drops by almost half, 50%. Why? Because wet sand acts like a natural lubricant. It lowers the friction, and suddenly moving 3-ton blocks, that's like 2 small cars, becomes doable with just 16 people. That's it. No aliens! No magic. And for bigger stones, we've got data too. A 16-ton blocks needed 45 people. A 60-ton colossus, 170 people. And what's more interesting for me, we've actually found traces of ramps near some pyramids. Real, physical packed-edge ramps that almost likely were used to drag the blocks upward. They may have also used stone rollers or counterweight sleds. Some even suggest oxen or donkeys. So yeah, there were plenty of ways to get the job done, and they handle it just fine. Okay, wait a minute. Where did the Egyptians even get that many people to build these pyramids? Where do you find 100,000 workers? It sounds absurd, but it's actually a legit question. Seriously, slaves? Prisoners? Aliens again? Not quite. Slavery on that scale would have been a logistical nightmare. I mean, feeding, guarding, housing, treating injuries. You would need just as many people managing these slaves as building the pyramid. It's super inefficient. So more and more researchers now believe the pyramid builders were actually seasonal laborers. I mean, local farmers. And because during the annual flooding of Nile, when agriculture shut down for a while, some people suggest that they worked on the pyramid. And we have some proofs, like Herodotus, the same guy who wrote about the Persian Wars, said it took 20 years to build the Great Pyramid, then more just to build the transport road, so 30 years total. And according to him, 100,000 men were involved. Angry at Pharaohs, by the way, for his insane project, but still doing the work. And no, that doesn't mean all 100,000 worked at the same time. No. Herodotus explains there were rotations. Workers switched out every few months. So in reality, there were about 25,000 to 30,000 people on site at once. And that actually lines up with modern research. Archaeologists found traces of worker villages, furnaces, tools, food scraps. Everything points to a well-organized construction base, not some brutal forced labor camp, or even worse. Oh, wait, I almost forgot. What about that light bulb on the Egyptian wall? Come on, it's clearly a bulb! The proof is right there! No, seriously, it's not. That filament, it's actually the snake god, Harsomtus, who in Egyptian mythology was always depicted as a serpent emerging from a lotus flower. And that glass container, that's just a lotus fruit, or a symbolic bubble of life. It's a sacred cosmological motif, nothing even remotely resembling a wire of metal. And okay, fine, but what about the pyramid itself? No mummies, no hieroglyphs, no decorations, just a raw, empty chamber. Isn't that suspicious? At first glance, maybe, but you just need a bit of archaeological context. Many tombs from that period, especially from the 3rd and 4th dynasties, weren't decorated at all. Wall art in tombs became common only later, during the New Kingdom era. And the sarcophagus, it didn't have to contain a mummy. Pharaohs' bodies were often moved, robbed, or even destroyed by future rulers or grave robbers. And even I say grave robbers, I'm not even joking. Looting was a huge issue. We are talking about centuries of systematic plundering of artifacts, chambers, sarcophagi, everything that might have helped us understand how the pyramids were actually built, how daily life looked like, what rituals they practiced was stolen, gone. And may you remember how I told you about the white limestone casing? Well, the most famous case of archaeological looting is probably Giovanni Battista Belzoni. He was Roman hydraulic engineer, circus strongman, professional adventurer, and self-declared archaeologist. In the 18th centuries, Belzoni opened several key tombs inside pyramids. including the ones attributed to Chafre and Khufu at Giza. He literally paved the way to the Valley of the Kings. Yeah, that Valley of the Kings. Here's the thing. Belzoni's methods had nothing to do with modern archaeology. If you are picturing him gently brushing away the sand, please forget it. He used explosives. He blew his way inside. In the result, dozens of archaeological sites were permanently damaged. Some collapsed forever. Inscriptions were destroyed. And now all we can do is guess what might have been there. And that's not all. Belzoni had no problem shipping the ancient relics overseas and selling them to private collectors. He did that for decades, all the way through the 19th centuries, until the international community finally decided to start protecting cultural heritage properly. And no, he wasn't even afraid of the Pharaohs curse. Maybe because no one had invented that yet. Yeah, I didn't tell you about that. Some say if you disturb the rest of a king, open his tomb, break the seal, whatever, you are cursed. You're doomed. Although, maybe we should call it, I think, maybe the curse of the ruler instead of pharaoh, because it turns out you don't have to be in Egypt to get cursed. You could be in Poland, for example. Yeah, there's a famous case involving King Casimir the Great. He died in 1370 and was buried in the Wawel Cathedral. And according to legend, his tomb bore an inscription: "Whoever disturbs this resting place shall be cursed." And for centuries, no one touched it. Until 1973, a team of conservators, with permission from the Archbishop of Krakow, opened the tomb for restoration and study. The remains were returned a few months later, and then it got weird. One historian on the team had a sudden heart attack. A costume specialist died of pneumonia. The photographer a stroke. 3 deaths in a very, very short time. And while no one said it publicly, behind closed doors, one word kept coming up: the curse. Coincidence? Maybe. But the explanation is almost identical to the most famous tomb opening case in history: the tomb of Tutankhamun. It's November 1922. Valley of the Kings. Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon were starting at a rocky slope buried in sand. Carter takes a chisel, gives it a gentle tap, and suddenly uncovers a curved step. For the next 3 days, they dig out more steps until they reach a sealed doorway. Stamped into the plaster are lead seals bearing the cartouche of Tutankhamun, untouched for over 3,300 years. Carnarvon famously says, "Howard, I see wonderful things." But Carter stays cool. He insists they wait for the official Egyptian antiquities inspector, because even in the middle of the desert, bureaucracy never sleeps. So on the evening of November 26th, the officials arrive. Carter chips a small hole in the wall, just big enough to slip in his hands. He lights a candle, holds it to the opening, but a sudden draft blows it out. Still, for one split second, he sees golden statues gleaming in the darkness, enough to know something incredible is inside. And the next morning is the official seal removal. Scribes write down the date and time. The photographer snaps the first shots. But meanwhile, back in camp, a small tragedy. The team's pet canary is eaten by a sand cobra that had slithered into its cage through a crack. Now, snakes in fibs? Yeah, that's totally normal. But a cobra? That's different. In Egyptian mythology, the cobra is sacred protector of pharaohs. So yeah, people put 2 and 2 together, and before the next telegram, even left for London. Rumors of Tutankhamun's warning had already left the camp. And over the next 6 years, Carter's team catalogued every single grain of sand. And the press counted every single body. The first to die, Lord Carnarvon, in March 1923. A mosquito bite got infected. Then came pneumonia, and the headlines exploded. First victim of the curse. Then historian Arthur Weigel added fuel to the fire. The wound on Carnarvon's cheek was matched a scar on Tutankhamun's mummy. Only there's a problem. No one had seen the mummy yet. It was opened 6 months later. In total, about a dozen people from the curse list died. But let's be honest, most of them were already pretty old. Like James Breasted, he was 70. Alan Gardiner, 84. Arthur Mace, 52. And he was battling advanced tuberculosis. So yeah, this was not exactly a team of teenagers. The few younger deaths are now believed to have been caused by a tumor mold, Aspergillus flavus, a toxic fungus that produces aflatoxins, which attacked your lungs and liver, especially in dry, sealed tombs. And now add heat, dehydration, and malaria, and you've got yourself a very earthly explanation for the so-called Pharaohs curse. And same logic applies to the case of King Casimir the Great in Poland. In 1973, his royal tomb in Wawel was opened for research, right? And within months, 3 members of team died. All in their 50s, all working in a dusty tomb, without masks or protection. Their age plus exposure to spores gave them a very real risk of complications. But what really turned it all into legend? The media. A new spicy headline, some mythological flair, and suddenly it's not about toxins or infections. It's about an eternal curse. Because let's face it, that's what people click on. Boring explanations don't go viral. And speaking of myths, what about the fact that the Great Pyramid is aligned perfectly with the 4 cardinal directions? No GPS, no compass. Actually, all they needed to did it was a stick. Seriously, a gnomon, just a vertical rod stuck in the ground. The Egyptians observed its shadow day after day, hour after hour. They noticed something simple. At solar noon, the shadow is shortest. That shortest shadow points due south. Draw a line the opposite way. That's true north. Boom! North-south axis. Now cross it at a right angle and you get east and west. Done. Not very mysterious, I know, but it works. Same with the legendary perfect leveling of the pyramid's base. People freak out about the 1.3 centimeter height difference at the corners, but that's because they used water, ordinary water. Yes, they flued the foundation pit like a bathtub, waited until the surface settled, marked the waterline, and leveled the stone to match it. Water finds a perfect level, always, and it still works even today. And you know what? I think the real reason we struggle with all this is because deep down, we don't want to believe that the greatest miracle here wasn't aliens. It was patient. Just imagine it, stone by stone, block by block, day after day, for 20 years or maybe 30. And that's not even counting the years of preparation before the first block was placed. Honestly, some people are disappointed that there's no space laser, no advanced tech, no GPS, no drones, no laser levers, just water and geometry and humans. That was enough. But we keep chasing complex answers for simple things. Why? Because it's more fun to believe in aliens than to admit this was built by ordinary people following the crazy dream of their king, right? But in the end, we're human. We focus on the final image, on the wow effect. We look at the result and forget how much sacrifice, how much effort and sheer stubbornness it took just to make that image real. Or maybe I'm wrong. If you enjoy this kind of content, please subscribe and hit the like button, okay? And now it's something new in YouTube. I mean, something like Boost or Popular Something like this. If you have opportunity and you have time, it will be pleasure for me, okay? Where are you from, guys? Let me know in the comment section too, because I'm from Poland, but I think I'm world citizen. I don't personally love nations. Who cares? Me not. Bye. Hello.